Good morning.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Ready Row USA podcast, featuring the best of rowing news, interviews, gadgets, and gear from clubs, enterprises, and rowers across the country. Today's topic, we're talking about the rowing toolbox for both coaches and rowers. We know that rowing is an acquired craft. You know, we're not born knowing how to row, and some of it is training, some of it is intuition, some of it is educated guess. But for coaches, there's a lot of other little tools and gadgets, especially people skills. But I think the same goes for the DIY rower. So if you're a rower coaching yourself, today's show is for you. And for coaches, we've got maybe some new ideas and new ways of thinking that could help you in your role. Everybody gets faster for less effort. And so we're going to talk about today's ultimate rowing toolbox. But first.
Hi, this is your producer, Charlotte Pierce, and I'm the producer of Ready Row USA. We're part of the International Rowing Chat Network. And you can visit our website at rowing.chat. It's like the simplest URL in the world. And you can subscribe to receive notifications of upcoming shows, send in news tips, and join your rowing community. And in the booth today, we have Tara Morgan as our host. And like I said, I'm the producer. Our associate producer is Tara Morgan and frequent host. Our senior correspondent is Mark Wilson. He's out fighting the hurricane today. Our executive producer is Rebecca Caro of the Rowing Chat International Podcast Network. Our regular panelists and contributors include Ryan Worth, who's here with us today, and Alison Pollini of Carnegie Lake. Our director is me. I'm behind the scenes selecting your questions and comments for discussion by our panelists. So please keep them coming via the YouTube channel or at our club news or gadgets and gear submissions forums. You'll find all these links and more on our website and in the show notes on our YouTube channel or in your favorite podcasting app. So we realize that some of you are watching us live, and we welcome your comments live as well. Or if you're listening later, you can always comment or send us a message via our rowing.chat website. And now a word about our fabulous sponsors.
All right, I'll take this one. Ryan, why don't you take the next one? I'll do this one. This is Randall Oar Foil, hydrofoiloar.blogspot.com. Digging deep under the water with your oars is a challenge for many athletes. Engineer Ian Randall has come up with a solution that both prevents digging and also makes your boat go faster. Launched in 2019, these ingenious devices are glued or taped on the top edge of your oar. Right-angled attachment that helps the top of the oar remain near the water surface. And you can see they're thick pieces of material, so it allows the same length foil to fit on a sweeper or sculling oar. Cool. That's a new sponsor for Rowing Chat, so thanks for that. And Ryan, why don't you read this one?
Yeah, another sponsor we've had for a while is Oar Inspired. The engineers at Oar Inspired have made it even easier to videotape your crew. Their design has a tripod with suction cup feet, easily mounts and removes from the stern or bow deck of the boat to get the camera angle you really need. You read more at rowing.chat/sponsors/Oar Inspired.
Thanks. All right, let's get to it. So today is Rowing Toolbox. What do you think of when you hear Rowing Toolbox?
Well, for me as a sculler, a rower, and a coach, I'm thinking about what the coach's toolbox has in it, what the team's toolbox has in it, what the coxswain's toolbox has in it, what the individual rower's toolbox has in it, and what the private shell owner's toolbox has in it. And there's a ton of overlap in that. And I think if you just know which toolbox you're trying to build, then that makes it really easy to know what you need to put in it.
Right. So I would say some of the considerations, maybe the categories for a toolbox would be the workout itself. Like, what are you going to do that day, whether that's drills or whatever. So looking ahead on your training goals, but then and how to execute that practice. Then there's safety considerations, right, for a toolbox. Yeah. And then for me, there's also, and I'm sure for everyone else, there's equipment stuff. So having some gadgets or tools, physical tools with you in the boat.
Yeah. And I should clarify that when I was talking about the toolboxes of the different roles, is that I meant not just the physical tools, but the tools of communication. For a coach, for me, I like to have a megaphone, because when I'm trying to talk loud, it sounds like I'm yelling. People think yelling is stressful, and that's a natural response. So for me as a coach, a megaphone is part of my toolbox, be it a cone or an electric megaphone. If I'm a coxswain, then part of that toolbox is hopefully having a conversation with the coach or whoever's designing the practice, so that you're better prepared to make good calls and keep the crew on track.
Right. And if you're an overwhelmed coxswain, maybe you're a new coxswain, or maybe it's a new crew for you or a new coach for you, having one of those nifty waterproof pads with the pen that goes with it, and be able to write down your rowers' names, what the workout's going to be, and also understanding that a practice has a flow to it, and the coach might go off track, and say, okay, we're going to nix that. We're going to try this thing now.
Absolutely. And just having the notepad, even if you're getting your lineup when you show up at the boathouse or as the warm-up is wrapping up, you're able to jot it down. And then you don't call your bow pair by name and then forget who your 3C was.
Right. Especially this time of year when people are maybe graduating from Learn to Row in the master's programs, or the new freshmen are coming in, or the new high school programs are starting. And it's a lot of names to remember. You got 150 kids in a crew, and they're not wearing name tags, and you can't see them. Let's take the coxswain first. Like, what would you say a coxswain absolutely should have on board with them?
As far as physical tools, one thing to know is whether you're in a boat with metric or standard equipment, because I think a lot of people like to just go ahead and carry a 10 mil or a 7/16 wrench. Either way, an adjustable wrench, oftentimes called a spanner, that's going to cover you for most things.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for the coxswain, the little coxswain tools, we've got one in one of those images. They're just a stamped piece of metal with a handful of different slots. 11 mil and 7/16 are pretty close. So one of the tools that I carry, no matter what it is, it's got 10 mil on one side and a 7/16 on the other. And then,
ooh,
yeah, you can find those at Lowe's.
Really?
Yep. They're just a pair of close end wrenches. And so yeah.
That sounds delicious.
Those are great. And the coxswain, the little flat metal tools, those are great. Swift makes them. Vespoli makes one in-house. There's sometimes they're giveaways at regattas. You can order them from their websites. But for a coxswain, just having the ability to have someone say, hey, my blank is loose, and say, okay, here's the wrench coming back to you, that eliminates a big stop, right?
Absolutely.
It's quick. It's easy. And then you go off the dock. All right, everybody check your heights. Oops, I dropped my spacer.
Right. We need to have spacers with them.
Yeah, having a few extra Orlock spacers, or you might call them clam spacers. But for the coxswain, also some electrical tape. Please no first aid tape, unless that's what you have for the rower's hands.
And no duct tape. No
duct tape.
No.
And Tara knows this, but the reason is that the adhesives in those tapes are a pain in the butt to get off of stuff. But a little bit of vinyl tape, the adhesive comes off easy with some denatured alcohol or even hand sanitizer. Remember that for on-site stuff. If you're trying to get a handle clean, your plastic oar handles are getting sticky, or in the summer you're getting sunblock all over them. Just keeping those clean of oils and adhesives from other people's tapes make the handle a lot more comfortable. And hand sanitizer can do that in a pinch.
And I would say also, for the coxswain, they need to assume a lot of responsibility for their amplification equipment. They don't need to assume responsibility for the speaker system in the boat. That's a boatswain's responsibility. But they should test their box before they get in. They should test the battery levels before they get in. Because nothing's worse than a really complicated workout, lots of drills, and a Cox box that goes out and they're yelling and screaming, and nobody can hear them. And four-seat is passing it back. But I think as sort of a segue into the rowers' toolbox themselves, bringing into the boat the dry bag and maybe your own 7/16 wrench if you're rowing that kind of a shell. I like to have my own sort of multi-tool because the foot stretcher might be weird, something. And I used to always carry medical tape. And invariably, someone would ask me for some. Does anybody have any medical tape? So I don't take a luggage with me in the boat, but I do like to have that. How important do you think it is in terms of the mental toolbox for the coxswain to just know more about the coach and know more about what the coach likes in terms of giving feedback? Because the way that I teach coxing, and this is a little bit deeper than our topic, but I teach coxing in 3 levels. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3. A level 1 coxswain doesn't say anything and just steers. Just don't crash the boat, right? Just navigate. A level 2 coxswain can call drills and count, right? And steer. And a level 3 coxswain would be if you and I coxed, or if like Mary Whipple coxed. Like they actually are coaches and they can give feedback. And I think it's really about not complicating things and not talking over coaches with feedback that's not helpful. 3 seat, 3 seat, 3 seat, 3 seat. Like do they really even know what 3 seat's doing, right?
Yeah. And that's really important too, to think about that progressive development, because that's what all coxswains, or even just rowers who sometimes end up in the coxswain seat, should really be trying to think towards, is how do you become, as you described, a level 3 coxswain? And that's a really intimate understanding of all the pieces, and the communication piece being a huge one of that. I think, like you said, the worst thing a coxswain can do in most scenarios is run into something. So there's your level 1. The second worst thing a coxswain can do is be a distraction. From the process of letting the boat move forward. And that can be easy to do because a good coxswain's also enthusiastic, but we want to make sure that enthusiasm is channeled in a good way. And kind of taking it back to the topic for today of the toolbox, having the coxswain think about the soft skills and the hard tools that are going to make them effective in keeping things running smoothly. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I think if we shift our focus to the coach, now the coach's toolbox is kind of an expanded version of that coxswain toolbox, their physical toolbox. So as a coach, I'm on the water. I do like to have the cone megaphone, although the ones with the metal edge on your mouth, people don't take real good care of that. And I've gotten, and also they sink really fast. Here's a picture of me with one. They sink really fast. I've got 2 in Lake Washington.
That's actually a Mark Wilson hack. Is he makes a handle out of a big chunk of wood, and it adds a flotation that they won't sink.
Shut up. So smart.
There you go.
There's a hack. Yeah. We should have a hack day. But I do like the Blue Ocean electric. If you're a new coach out there, or wishing you're, maybe an older rower who can't hear very well, which is many older rowers are either overwhelmed or literally can't hear. The Blue Ocean is really good. It's made by NK. And I think the cool gadgety thing about that is that it plugs into a Coxsbox headset from NK. And you can actually just hold it, because it's hard to hold it for a whole practice. You can just kind of set it down with the speaker facing your people and just push the button and talk into the headset, which I thought was kind of a cool trick. I've seen actually launch boats that have places where you can set your NK, set your Blue Ocean.
And that ties back into something a lot of coaches did back in the day, if they had a dedicated launch, was just to mount a couple speakers from an NK wiring harness or in-boat harness, right? And use that as their own megaphone. One quick thought for a small population of people using hearing aids is that sometimes the voice amplified through a megaphone is actually harder for their hearing aids to amplify than just the naked voice.
Yeah. If you're a person who wears your hearing aids, I mean, you should know and be comfortable taking your hearing aids onto the water, because most of the people that I've worked with won't wear them on the water, because they'll just, if they fall in, or especially if they're in a small boat, if they're in an 8, they're fine. But you're right. That amplification can be, it doesn't really register very well sometimes with those hearing aids. In terms of the coach's mental toolkit, what are some things that maybe you got passed down to you over the years, or things that you've gleaned from your favorite or influential coaches in terms of communication, planning, feedback? Yeah.
When we talked about that briefly earlier, the thing that sticks with me is a good coach's ability to have the hard conversation clearly. Once you start to develop a relationship with your athletes, it can be hard to tell them bad news. But one of the most important things I think a coach can do is to communicate clearly and, say, look, you're not as fast as you think you are, and how to say that nicely. Or, you did this wrong and this is really a bad thing. And being able to just say that clearly, not mincing the words. The next day, I think if the respect is there, it's just going to grow, because as athletes in the sport, you want to know how to get better, and you want to know how to be your best. And for a good coach, you've got to be able to communicate that even when it's uncomfortable for the coach.
Yeah. And I want to just riff off of what you just said about, I think it's really important for a rower, because we're both rowers and coaches, you and I, which is a unique perspective, because a lot of coaches don't row anymore. Right.
Right.
There's no time, bodies are wrecked, whatever the reason is. But I think it's really important that when I'm a rower and I'm being coached, I understand what's happening for the coach. Right. And because I'm a coach, I get it. I get that they're managing 30 people. I get that they're trying to give feedback to each person if that's their style. But I think it's important for rowers to sort of take the focus off themselves for a second and go, hey, so let's look at this whole big practice picture. If I need something as a rower, do I feel comfortable raising my hand in the middle of a practice and asking, right? And is that appropriate? Is that part of the culture of the club? And a lot of clubs, it's not. You don't raise your hand and say, I don't get what you're talking about. It's
Sure.
Interesting.
Well, and in a lot of cultures, my thought is that's probably because of chain of command. And so inside a boat, you're wanting to pass your question or your need to the bowman or the coxswain so that they can insert that least disruptively into the flow of what's going on with the coach.
Yeah. And I think from the coach's perspective, one of my main tips, and you see it on the screen there, is the rower is your customer. And I think that because of the dynamic sometimes, and how hard that job can be sometimes, you forget that they're paying you to do something, and you need to deliver, and you need to be concerned with whether you're delivering it or not. And in terms of the toolbox, I think a club always, always, always needs to do evaluations of their coaches by the rowers. They always need to say, what's Ryan doing really well? What's Tara not doing well? What could Tara improve on? Not are they good, are they bad, but like, what could they improve on? What have I learned from them? I mean, what are some of the ways that you think you've been evaluated that has worked for you?
I like just doing a survey. Either you make it electronic or it's printed. I like to do the same thing for the coxswains. And that way you can compile all the responses. I like just doing a scale 1 to 5, not adequate at all, extremely excellent on the other side of the scale, and then open it for some open-ended feedback. And that can be really quick. I like to use Google surveys so that you can send a link on mobile device. And after a couple training sessions, you can say, hey, everybody just respond on the coxswain. That gives you some qualitative data for then doing seat racing if you end up having to do that with coxswains. And then also just for coaches so that you're better directed in their developmental process. I think we're into a whole nother set of topics here.
Yeah, for sure.
Skills. But I think that we would really be amiss to mention that in the coach's toolbox, you've got to have safety stuff with you for your personal.
What's on your list?
I think a big one is just a PFD. I don't care if it's super warm where you are, it's good to have it on. Everybody who's a good swimmer is a good swimmer when they're conscious. Nobody is when they're knocked out. Right. And a launch can get away from you easy. I've seen some good coaches lose control of a launch, and I've seen a couple of them fall out. So that's my second one, is the kill switch lanyard. A lot of people have just kind of stopped using them. They've jerry-rigged their outboards to not need them. But if I think a lot of coaches end up letting go of the tiller a lot anyway. I like to have a tiller locked at work so that I can kind of let the boat go on cruise control. If I need to use both my hands, one to film, one to hold a megaphone or whatever. But just staying really bulletproof safe. I'm not saying that these are things that hopefully you're ever even going to utilize. Knock on wood, in 15 years, I haven't fallen out of a launch, but I've gotten close a couple times. Usually when I'm trying to demonstrate leg drive, but
right.
But
here we go.
But nothing would be a worse feeling than having yourself fall out of a launch and it then cause damage, right? So I think from the safety perspective, you got that. Remembering a paddle, remembering an anchor, and remembering to check your fuel.
Yeah, I think having an extra fuel line, auxiliary gas tank, Megaphone is a safety tool. Cell phone is a safety tool. Rope is a safety tool. U-ring, horseshoe ring. Sometimes throw a whole set of PFDs for your rowers. Not crowding your boat with a bunch of observers. Have you ever noticed how a coach totally coaches differently when they have guests in the launch? So good.
Yeah. Or looking at their phones. We're all guilty of a little bit of that.
Get an intern.
Yeah, interns. That'd be great.
So we're going to mention Alison Pollini, one of our new correspondents from Carnegie Lake, had some ideas about what to bring in the boat.
Yeah. And we had winter stuff first.
Right? Yeah, winter's coming.
Yeah, so pogies are a thing. I think the Mason-Dixon line is about where when you get south of it, you'll get made fun of for wearing them.
I've never worn them.
Yeah, the Northwest maybe. But, some people just get cold hands. And I'll actually pitch another one for especially some masters who are just really small in body mass. The electric vest, I was pretty apprehensive about because it's just extra stuff. But when you are going out in really cold environments, being able to be warm keeps you productive and safe.
And I think bringing one of those little dry bags so that if you do delayer, you're not putting your stuff into the bottom of a wet boat and then you can't put it on afterwards. I always tell my Learn to Row students, always have a complete change of clothes in your car, from a towel to warm socks to pants to hoodie, and never use those clothes. Just have it in your car because you never know what you're going to be like when you get off the water. We do a water launch here on Vashon, even in January. And it's pretty chilly. It's the ocean water we're going in. Alison also talked about a little hack with a beach ball. And she's saying that if you're kind of a tiny coxswain, a shorter coxswain, and a bow loader, she says using a beach ball inside a plastic bag so that you can grab it, so you have something to grab onto. You shove that down inside your bow loader, and you can be a little bit cozier. What do you think?
And inflate as needed. That's absolutely right. There's beach balls that live in the bow compartment of a lot of boats. Vespolia has started putting an adjustable foot stop in, but the beach ball is super light and it's adding flotation and nothing can get lost up there.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, I stumbled on this really interesting website. I had the question on the screen is, where can I find gear lists with recommendations? And I Googled coxswain toolbox or rowing coach toolbox, and this website called kit.com came up. And basically you or I could compile the actual products from Amazon, from Lowe's, from various online commerce websites, and I would make my coach's toolbox. And it's really good to go there, I think, just as a research project. I didn't go as far as buy anything, but because they're linked directly to the product. And so these guys, of course, get a kickback. But I just thought it was an interesting way to consolidate all these items together. And by no means are they definitive. I mean, that's you need to ask your mentors about the definitive list of what you need. But anyway, just thought that was really interesting. Where do you usually get your gear lists?
Oh, just from experience. I think a lot of that started back before Amazon was really very present. So, the NK stopwatch is a great tool, but there are some $38 Amazon buys that are pretty much the same watch. So coaches who need a stroke rate or referees. But as far as the megaphones go, I've gone through Pile, I've gone through cheaper ones, and the Blue Ocean is the only one that has really continued to stand up. The other nice thing about it, as we talked earlier, was that the battery is also interchangeable with your Cox boxes.
That's true.
Yeah, so that's a good one. And then on the gear thing, it just takes trial and error, finding, as far as outer layers and stuff like that, be a rower or a coach or a coxswain, just finding what you're going to be comfortable in day to day.
And we didn't even get to, which is a whole other show worthy of coaching yourself. Like all the ideas and ways to diagnose yourself on the water. how to receive coaching feedback, how to execute coaching feedback from folks. This show is really geared towards the kind of stuff we talked about today, news and gadgets and gear. But I think there are a lot of like gear and gadgets in your head that can help you understand what a coach meant and help you execute some improvements.
Yeah.
I want to mention that Charlotte, our producer, wants to talk about the head of the Skog, which is the Androscoggin. I'm assuming, yes, it's a river. It's happening Sunday.
The 15th.
Yes, at Bates College Boathouse in Maine, in Green, Maine. So this Sunday, the registration closes at midnight, almost midnight on this Sunday. She said this is a really unique race. It's a really fun group of people. So don't miss out if you're up in that area of the world. Tara's tip, myself, just a reminder that the rower is a customer. And here's an example of how to be playful with your rowers. I'm a master's coach, and you know, we just sometimes need to play and sometimes need to enjoy it. And this is an 81-year-old master's rower in an 8 standing up and showing us how to do a tree pose and just showing us she's got it still. You know, she's a powerhouse. And it's our job as coaches to make sure we be playful, but also helpful and reinforce and encourage. That's my tip for today. We have a message from Mark, who is currently battling this hurricane down in Florida. So we're wishing Mark the best this morning and being safe. I've seen some video from Orlando and looks pretty scary, but I think they're coming out of it now. I haven't seen the news. Have you lately?
They're going to be getting close to the other side of it, but then Dorian looks like it's going to finally decide to head towards the coast a little bit more. So yeah. Our folks up in South Carolina are battening down. Yeah.
Okay.
And definitely wrecked the Bahamas. So
yeah. Oh my God, the Bahamas are flattened. Speaking of the Bahamas, I understand that there's a great rowing club down there that we might be on the lookout to help them out if they would receive some damage. I love sharing those campaigns when boathouses have fires and floods and damage, and it happens unfortunately more frequently than we'd like. So we'll check on the Nassau Rowing Club and get back to you guys next week. Speaking of next week, we always do an episode hashtag for every episode. And this week it is hashtag RRUSA podcast. If you share or talk about this show after the fact, and you maybe go visit our show notes website on the blog at rowing.chat, use this hashtag and you'll enter to win a fabulous prize from maybe one of our sponsors, maybe one of our presenters. And looking ahead, we just want to make sure everyone knows we are going to be at the U.S. Rowing Convention, coming to you live with some fun broadcasting. So come and look for our booth at U.S. Rowing Convention. We want to thank our fabulous sponsors, Randall Orr Foils and Orr Inspired GoPro Mount. And we have a few final words from our producer, Charlotte.
I got to add myself on here apparently because
hi.
Yeah, we're the Toolbox is great, and the hashtag we've had a couple winners. We're going to do a monthly winner, so get on that and spread it around so we can get more visibility for the podcast. It'd be great. And my company is Pierce Press. I am actually looking for some titles in alternative education, which could involve innovative coaching techniques. So get a hold of me through my contact form on the website at piercepress.com. And our senior correspondent, of course, is Mark Wilson. He's dealing with hurricane-related issues, but I'm sure he'll come out on the other side. He's at All-American Rowing Camp in DeLand, Florida, and he also represents AccuDock, the fabulous floating docks. Tara is founder of Seize the Oar Foundation, and she rows out of Vashon Island Rowing Club, and also runs the Facebook Learn to Row group, which is a thriving and dynamic great Learn to Row group. So for coaches and rowers. Tara's also running a survey through CZOR for lifelong rowing. So here's the CZOR.com/lifelong rowing is the URL. You can also find all this stuff in the show notes. So if you're listening along, just keep in mind that the show notes below your podcast should have all these links. Upcoming episodes, we have How to Be a Chameleon in the Boat, any seat, any day. That's, I think, next week. And then we're going to have our first ever Wacky Wednesday, and we even spelled first wrong. So it's going to be really wacky. It's going to be.
We're off to a good start.
I know. I just thought there's all these fun things. Like there's some regatta that you mentioned where they're rowing under a waterfall or something. And
oh yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's the pterodactyl nest in Springfield and stuff. So we'll kind of get loosey goosey there, and we'd love to have more people come on for that show. Club spotlights, fall head races, and of course more gadgets and gear coming up. We also want you to make it your show. So we are really loving when people send us news about their clubs. It doesn't matter how small it is, how large it is. We want to hear from you, and also that your gadgets and gear, like we talked about today. There's probably something that we didn't. I know there's something we didn't mention that's just you fervently believe in to improve your rowing. So all that stuff, all those links are on the show notes, and then we'll close out here in a few minutes. Any final words that you guys want to talk about?
I think just remember to use that hashtag on social media, Instagram and Facebook, that RRUSA Toolbox is the hashtag for this episode. There are some giveaways for that. Mm-hmm. And a good way to engage in the conversation beyond this. The Learn to Row Facebook group is good for coaches, coxswains, experienced people, especially for masters who are trying to grow your club. Whether you think your club needs to grow or not, it does. So get in the community, get more people on the water.
Yeah.
We have a lot of masters graduating right now from Learn to Row into master's programs, and I'm very passionate about how to help a club make that happen and make that happen smoothly. So call me, email me, get on our Facebook page.
Yeah, and you guys, I thought this was a really good show. I hope that we can revisit this topic, because I think it's, there's probably 5 shows we could do about the rowing toolbox, but.
Yeah, literally. Okay.
What do y'all do later in the week?
Sorry?
Later this week. More rowing.
Absolutely. More rowing. So I think we need to sign off officially, and have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next Wednesday.
Yep.